Hey people, alright, so I found this design on Dribble. I thought it would be cool if I recreated it with Nuxt 3 and Tailwind CSS. I'll leave a link to the original design in the description so you guys can actually compare the two. But yeah, this is it. It's just a landing page for an agency. So let's get started. Alright, so to start our project, we're going to create the Nuxt 3 app with npx nuxt init and period, just to let it know that we're creating the project in this directory. Alright, so the project is created. Now we want to install the dependencies, so we just run npm i. Alright, cool. Now that we have all the dependencies installed, we're just going to jump to the Tailwind CSS website and look at how to add Tailwind to our Nuxt application. So let's jump over here, get started using the framework, and let's go to Nuxt. And we're just going to follow the instructions here. So we already created our project. We're going to install Tailwind CSS, Post CSS, and Auto Prefix as dev dependencies. So let's jump back to VS Code, paste that there, enter. And we also want the init command for Tailwind CSS. So we're going to use npx Tailwind CSS init, and that will create our Tailwind config file. Alright, next thing we want to do is to add the post CSS settings to our Nuxt config. So we're going to open the Nuxt config.ts file. Let's minimize that terminal. There should be a post CSS variable or key in the define Nuxt config object, but we're just going to copy it and paste it from the Tailwind CSS website. So that should be it. Just allow this thing to save. While that's saving, let's go and grab the rest of the configuration. So we need to add this to our Tailwind config file. So let's jump back to VS Code and just add it to the Tailwind config file. So replace this content array with this. We also need to add the app.view to this list. So let's go with app.view. Good. All right, I think we need to add our CSS file next. So let's just create this file. And we just click on this thing and paste the different directives from Tailwind CSS into this file. So we need all of this. Save. Alright, next thing that we need to do is we need to just use some Tailwind variables and see if it works. But first, let's add this CSS to our Nuxt config file. So back to VS Code and Nuxt config, CSS property. Good. Now we can go to app.view, replace this with Nuxt page, and then create our index page. So pages/index.view, and let's just start off with a button to test if Tailwind is working. Then let's just run npm run dev and this command will open our application in a new browser. So it's loading. Good, Tailwind is working. Alright, so now that we know that Tailwind is working in our project, I think it would be best for us to do the setup work from now. We're gonna add some different properties to the Tailwind config file, like changing the font, adding custom spacing and all of that jazz. So in VS Code now, I have Tailwind config.js open, and the first thing I want to do is I want to bring in the inter font from Google. So let me just copy and paste this in our CSS file. So at the top of main.css, we can just paste this here, and you can get this from fonts.google.com. The next thing I want to add is the font family property to the extend object inside Tailwind config. So this is the extend object, and I'm just going to add it here. It's going to be font family, and you can see where Copilot is already suggesting this to me. So the default font style will be the sans, and we're using Inter and sans serif as fallback. The next thing I want to add to this extend object is a custom space property. So on desktop and mobile, I want to have a specific padding. So I'm going to just define that here inside this spacing object. So desktop is going to be let's say 100 pixels, and mobile I'm going to go with 10 pixels. I am also going to add a custom animation to this file, and you do that by adding an animation object. And the reason why I'm adding these inside extend is because I don't want to override the default font family, spacing and animation that comes with Tailwind. If you want to override them, you just put them outside of the extended under the theme key, and then the default font family, spacing and animations that come with Tailwind CSS will not be available to you. So the first animation that I want to create is called fade, and to define a custom animation in Tailwind CSS, you just give it the name of the animation, the duration, and this property. I don't remember what this is called. The second one I want to create is called slide down, and that's gonna be this thing that's suggested. I'm gonna give it 1 second. And for each animation that you define, you will need to define keyframes for them. So you just create the keyframes object and give it the name of the animation name. So this fade right here, or this slide down, let me just change this to slide down. So that would be an object inside keyframes. So fade is going to be an object that when at 0%, it will be at scale 0 and opacity 0. and at 100% scale and opacity will be 1. Good. So our next keyframe will be this one. Slide down. And at 0, we want to do transform, and it's going to be translate y -70 pixels, and the opacity will be 0. And at 100% will be at 0 on the y-axis, and the opacity will be 1. That's about it for the Tailwind config customization. I think we should move on to creating the different components now. Alright, so the first component that I'm going to be creating is the header component. So let me just close these, and in our folder structure, I'm just going to create a component directory and add header to it. Of course, we're going to use our header tag, and we're going to add a few classes to this header right here. So what we want to do is we want the header to flex. We want the items to be in the center. Justify between. Padding top and bottom of 7. And on large devices, we want to add that custom padding left and right of desktop. We want this header to be in the center, so MX Auto, and we want it to stick to the top, so we add sticky on top of 0, and then the background is going to be white with 80% opacity. Know that this is actually doing something. We're going to add it to our index page. So let's just add this component here, and Nuxt does the auto import thing, so we don't have to explicitly import it down here in the script tab. Now that the header is in place, I want us to add the first element to our header, and it's going to be a Nuxt link. It's going to the home page, and I don't think I need these classes on it, so let's delete that. I'm just going to add the h1 inside, and it's going to say grow dot, and then we're going to add the word pro inside span tags, because we want to add a custom class to these 3 letters, and that is text red of 600. Let's remove this space, save this, and then let's look at Chrome to see what's happening. And you can see where it's being displayed here in Chrome. Alright, good. So back to VS Code. We are going to add some more styles to this H1. So we want it to be bold, and we want to increase the size of the text to 24 pixels. Let's see what's happening in Chrome. So this is working as intended. We hover over it and we see that it's a link. So back to VS Code. We want to add the nav items. So we're going to create an unordered list and give it a class of flex on larger screens, hidden on mobile devices, and we want the items to be line centered, and we want to add some space between the items. So we're going to give it space x of 14. Before creating the li elements, the list items, I'm just going to add some links in our setup tab, in our setup script. So we add setup to the script and create the links. And this is just going to be an array of strings. Keep it simple. So home, about us, prices in. We're gonna add blog and contact. We also want to have some state to track link that is active. For now, in a real project, you'd probably want to get the current route and then style the link based on that, or you could just use the exact active link that comes with Nuxt link as a class, and you can style the link based on that active link property or CSS class. For now, I'm just going to create an active link. I'm going to say use state. I'm going to call this active link, that's the key, and then a function that returns the default active link. So let me just go ahead and save that. And then now in the unordered list, I'm going to loop over this links array. So let me just create that li for link I in links. I'm just going to add a Nuxt link. And the two properties is going to go to nothing for now, just hash. And let's just put that link there. So this is complaining because we need to add a key when we're using a for loop. So let me just go ahead and add that. The key is going to be link I. So let's save that and see what's happening in Chrome. Do a refresh, and here they are. Links are being displayed. So back to VS Code. We're going to add some style to the links. So I want to add a class of group to the li, so that we can get different styles whenever we hover on this li tag on this Nuxt link. So first class I want to add to this, I want the links to be font weight 500 and group hover. The text is gonna be black. We're gonna add a transition to this, and I want the duration to be 300 milliseconds. So let's save that. The next set of classes I want to add is to the li tag, and it's going to be a dynamic class. So let's just add this here. So I want the text to be gray whenever the link is not equal to the active link. So let's save that and see if it works. And it's working. You can see where when I hover over this text, it gets black, but otherwise it stays this gray color. Alright, back to VS Code. We want to have like a little bar underneath the links. So I'm going to actually add that now via a div. So below this Nuxt link, I'm gonna add this div and give it a few classes. I want the height to be very thin, so 2 pixels. Give it some margin from the top as well, 2 pixels. And when I hover over this li element, li tag or this link, I want the div to scale on the y-axis to 100%, and when I hover over it as well, I want the color to change to black. I also want, when I hover over this link, for it to become a block element, and the width is going to be an arbitrary value of 80%. I want the transition to be all, and the duration to be 300 milliseconds, just like the link above. I'm going to add a dynamic class to this div as well, and it's going to be based on the active link. You can see Copilot is already suggesting it. What I want to happen if the active link is actually exactly equal to the current link, I want the background to become black, and I want it to scale y 100. So let's save that and see if it's working properly. So head back to Chrome, and you can see it's there already. So when I hover, you see where the bar shows up below the link. Alright, back to VS Code. The next thing I want to do is to add the different buttons. So I'm going to add a div tag after this unordered list. This div, I'm going to give it a class of space x8, just to add some space between the buttons. It's going to be hidden on mobile devices and displayed on larger devices. First thing I want to add is, of course, a Nuxt link. And it's going to say login. Let's close that. Then I want to add a second Nuxt link that says register, but I'm going to add a few classes to this one. So the first one is border. I want the border to be black. Give it some padding, top and bottom of 3, left and right 7, rounded full. I want the font weight to be medium, I hover, I want the background to be black and the text to become white. Is that what it's suggesting? Yep. And I want this to have some sort of transition effect. So save that. Let's jump back to Chrome. And it's there, except I have this tag inside. All right, let's remove this tag. There we go. And now it's good. When we hover, we actually get that transition effect. The background becomes black. And I think we're done with the header for now. All right, so now that the header is in place, I think we can move on to the hero section. So let's jump back to VS Code and let's go to the index page. Let's just add a main section here, then another section which will represent our hero section. Let me just put this in a component from the start. So we just cut this out and add it over here. Hit save. Let's just go hero and hit save as well. Of course, we won't see anything because nothing is inside of this as yet. I want to add some margin to the bottom of this main tab. So let's just add this MB16 to this and jump into our hero component. So for the hero component, I want this section to have a few classes. So on large screens, the margin left and right is going to be that desktop property that we created. The background is going to be a specific color, off-white. This is the hex code, so it's F3, F7, F5. It's going to be rounded, XL, 3XL actually. So let's go rounded 3XL, give it a margin top of 4 and relative because we're going to have some absolute elements inside. So the first thing I want to do is to add this div tag that will have a class of flex, and then I'm going to add the h1 element, and this is going to have this text inside. So let me just copy and paste this, and then let's look at Chrome to see what's happening. So this is what it looks like thus far. Not very pretty. So let's go back to VS Code and fix this up a bit. So the H1 is going to have these properties, these classes. So font of bold, we want to increase the text size, increase the line height, and we're going to give this an arbitrary value. So I want it to be 1.15. It's going to be relative. It's going to have a z index of 40, and I want this to slide down on page load. So we're going to say animate slide down, and this is the custom animation that we added. So let's save that and switch to Chrome and see what's happening. So refresh, it slides down. All right, back to VS Code. We are going to add some text below the H1 tag, but first let's add some random bubbles or dots to our UI. The first one is just going to be a div up here. Div. It's just gonna have a class of absolutes. From the right, we're gonna give it a value of 10%. From the top, it's gonna be 50%. Want it to be rounded, full, so it's a circle. A width of 5, a height of 5, and the background is gonna be green. We want to add one more of these things, but we're gonna change the position, so it's gonna be left 40% for this one, and bottom 7, rounded full with the width and height of 5, and instead of it being green, it's gonna be yellow 500. So let's save that and see what it looks like. You can see we have our random bubbles here. This one, this one. I think you can actually add one closer to this as well. Yeah, let's try that. So back in VS Code, let me just copy this down, put it inside our H1, and then we can change the position. So right, 20%, top of 0. Let's make this one green, 500 at 50% opacity. Yeah, that should be good. So let's take a look at Chrome again to see what it looks like. And there it is. Okay, good. So back to VS Code. I'm just going to add this text below or H1 in a paragraph tag. So we'll just paste that here and add the classes. So margin top of 3, text is going to be gray 600, font's going to be medium, and we're going to increase the text size. Save that, head back to Chrome, and let's see what it looks like. Okay, well, we don't want it up here. We actually want it below this, so let's fix that. And to fix this, we are going to add this inside of a div and give this div a few, give it some classes. So we want flex basis of 50%. Going to give it some padding from the left, padding from the top, and we're going to make it relative. So let's save that and see what it looks like in Chrome. Good, that's looking relative at all. Alright, so back to VS Code. We're going to add another paragraph tag. It's very similar to this one, so let me just bring this down and change the text inside. All right, so now we're going to create a button which is going to be like our call to action. So let's add this inside a div, add this class, add some margin top, and then it's going to be similar to this button in our header. So let me just copy this, bring it over, and it's going to say get started. So head over to Chrome, and this is what it looks like. As you can see, it's not in the correct position, but we're going to fix that now. So let's just jump back to VS Code. I want to make a few changes to the button as well. Let's increase padding on both sides. I want it to be black by default, not when I hover. Text should be white as well. The border should be transparent by default. And when I hover, I want the border to become black. Alright, so let me see what happens when I do this. Good. Here we go. Then we have the issue of the border being black, so let's change that as well. So upon hovering, I want my border to become this color as well. Cool. So back to Chrome, refresh. There we go. Uniform color. All right, so the text is in place, the call to action is in place. Now we need the image on the right. So back to VS Code. I'm going to add below this first flex item. I'm going to add another div. Give this flex basis of 50% as well. Overflow hidden. Make it relative. It's going to be hidden on smaller screens and displayed on larger screens. I'm going to add an image, and the way we can add images to Nuxt 3 is inside our public folder. So let's just create this public folder, and I'm going to bring over this image that I have of a lady. So let's just call it home, and this is the image. So here I'm just going to use this image tag. The source is going to be home.png. Image of a woman, and the class I'm going to add to this, or the classes, are object cover, and I'm going to give it a height of 110%. So let's save that and see what it looks like inside Chrome. And there we go. This is our image inside our UI. Now I want to actually add a few of the little cards that are in the design. And to do this, I'm going to use some absolutely positioned elements. the first one that I want to add is what I call the investor stat card. So let's just jump back to VS Code and get that done. So the investor stat card is going to be at the top here. Just add a comment. And this is just going to be an absolutely position div. We're gonna give it some border radius of 2 XL, some padding. The background is gonna be white. The position from the bottom is gonna be 4. From the left, I want it to be 40%. So let's just add that. Let's give it a Z index of 40. When I hover over this item, I want it to scale a little bit. I also want it to have a shadow. So hover, shadow. By default, the shadow will be just a regular shadow, and it will be black at this opacity 0.05, and I want the transition to be there with a duration of 300 milliseconds. So of course nothing is going to be displayed here because there's no content in it as yet, but I want to add an image inside, and let me just bring this image in. And it's this start image 80%, so it's going to be image start.png, investor status for the alt tag, and then it's going to have a class of margin left and right auto. Below that is going to be a p tag. It's just going to say 80% startups, and then an h1 tag with investors inside it. Let's make this text a little bit bigger than the p tag and make it bold. Alright, now if we save this and head to Chrome, we should be seeing that element about here, but it's not being displayed properly. Oh, there we go. We needed to refresh it. I don't think the bold property is being applied. Oh, it got applied briefly. This issue usually happens with Tailwind for some strange reasons. The property won't be applied until you make some sort of change to the file. So don't worry about it. It will actually show up once we add another element to the page. So let's just jump back to VS Code, and I want to add another absolute element, but it's going to be within this flex container, which is the one housing the image. So this element is going to represent our chat button, and let me just create it right here. So class is going to be absolute. From the top 5, from the right it's going to be 15%. I'm going to add group to this, add a cursor of pointer. Inside, let me just create this circle. Oh, there we go. So it's gonna have a height of 20, a width of 16. The background is gonna be this amber color. It will be pill shaped and a position of a relative. Inside of this div, I'm going to add an icon. It's going to be an image. Let me just bring this image in. It's going to be an arrow. So we just go arrow.png. It's going to be an arrow image, or icon rather, because it's representing an icon. And the class on this image will be width of full. It's going to be absolutely positioned. 8 from the left, negative left, top of 3, and then when I hover over the elements, not this image specifically but the entire div, I wanted to translate the x on the x-axis by 16 pixels, and let's add the transition effect and the duration of 300 milliseconds. Alright, so let me just add this this p tag. I'm just gonna copy and paste it in. So it says let's chat with us. The font is bold, text is 20 pixels. Let's save that, head back to Chrome, and there it is. But when we hover over the element, the arrow slides to the right. Alright, now that we have the chat button in place and the start card in place, we can add our last absolute element to this UI, and it will be just like a customer review. So let's jump back to VS Code, and we're going to add that element inside of the second flex item. So this one is the chat button, and this one will be our customer review. Alright, so the customer review is going to have a class of absolute, top 50% from the top, 10% from the right. Inside of it, we are going to have a display of flex. So we have a div with a display of flex. It's going to be relative. Give it some padding. Round it full. Background is going to be white. Width is going to be 80. So that's 320 pixels. We want the pointer cursor. When we hover over this element, we want it to scale a bit. And of course, let's add the transition and duration. Alright, so the first element we're gonna add inside of this div is gonna be a heart icon. So we'll just add that comment here. We're gonna give it a class of right 5, not 0. Negative top 5. padding of 2, padding 2, height 11, width 11. We're gonna add a gradient here. It's going to the bottom right, and it's going from red 100 via red 500 to red 600. This is going to be a circle, so round it full. Large shadow, and we're going to give the shadow a color of red 500. Do we need to add opacity to that? No, that's fine. Inside of this div, we're going to add an image, which is going to be the heart icon. So let's bring that in now. So we have heart.png. That's going to be an image. Source is going to be heart.png. And this won't have any class. So let's save that. And then we're going to add the user image. So I'm just going to get a random image from the random user API for the source. Random customer. And for this image, we're going to give it a width of 14, a height of 14, and we want it to be a circle. So let's save that. And then we want to add the review left by the customer. So I'm just going to copy and paste this in and explain what's happening. So it's a paragraph tag. We increase the size of the text, the font weight, and change the text color to 600. We added the customer's name and made it bold and the text black, and we said it has light this community. So let's just jump back to Chrome and see what this looks like. So we hover, we get that scale effect, and you can see the shadow on the heart, and the text is formatted properly. So that should be about it for our hero section. Next, we can move on to the stat below this section. Alright, so now that the hero section is complete, we're just gonna add the section below that. So I'm just gonna jump back to VS Code and get started on that section. So below the hero section in main, just gonna add another section tag. Give it some margin top and padding left and right of that desktop value. Inside of this, I'm going to create a flex container. So let's give this div a class of flex, and we want it to add a divider between the items. So I'm just going to put divide x of 2, and let's add the flex items. So the first item, we're going to give it a flex basis of 50%, This will also be a flex container, and the space between the items in the container will be x10. So I'm going to add another image here. Let me just grab that image real quick. It's gonna be about the PNG. So about icon. And let's give it a class width auto and height 20. So let's just save that and see what it looks like. Refresh, and here it is. Here's our image. Good. So let's jump back to VS Code, and we want to add some text next to the image. So I'm just going to copy and paste this text in. And this paragraph tag, we increase the size of the text and change the color a bit. So let's save that and see what it looks like in Chrome. And this is what it looks like. Alright, so back to VS Code. For a second flex item, let me see. So it should be inside of this div. We're going to add another flex container. Items are going to be centered, justify evenly. Space X is going to be 10, and the flex basis is going to be 50% again for this item. We're going to add inside of this container a div with a class of text center relative. Here I'm going to add one more of the little circles. So let me just copy and paste this in. Save that. And then I'm going to add some stats. So this is going to be an H1 tag, the number 12 in it, and we're going to make it bold and increase the text size. So 8XL should be fine. And then for the substat or the tag, it's gonna say countries, and this is gonna be capitalized, so uppercase. I'm gonna make it bold as well and change the color of the text. Now we want to basically do the same thing for the second flex item, but we're going to change the color of the circle. Let's make this yellow, and then change this to 11 and add participants here. So let's take a look at this in Chrome to see what it looks like. And here we go. Alright, so as you can see, the section below the hero section is being rendered properly. We have the divider here, the stats on this side, and the text with the about icon over here. The last thing that we want to do is add the favicon so it gets displayed up here, and let's just change the title to GoPro. So let's jump back to VS Code and get this done. To change the title on all pages, we can just come to the app.view file, create a script tag, and use the use head composable from Nuxt, and add the title to be grow.pro. And I'm just going to pull the favicon into the public folder here. And we may need to restart the server. So let's just do that. And if we head back to Chrome and refresh, we see our title here, and the favicon is not being displayed as yet. So let me see. There we go. Now it's being displayed. So there we have it. That's our complete design. The repository will be linked in the description and the demo site, so you can actually click around and see what's good. Until next time, peace.